There are so many misconceptions about becoming a pilot. I think the first thing is knowing the entry requirements. So people think, oh, I need to have 20/20 vision, I need to have a degree. You don't. You can wear glasses, you only need 5 GCSEs. Even not knowing the entry points can be a barrier.
Your first job that earned you a bit of money, what was it?
Yeah, working in a restaurant, that was my first job. It really made a difference to starting to earn your own money, and I was really lucky through school I got the opportunity to get a qualification as a fitness instructor. So alongside restaurant work that I was doing, I was also working in a gym. A nice balance between kind of different work environments. I've come from a family where the work ethic is really strong. So my granddad was a farmer. He worked 7 days a week, long hours, he was up every morning at 6 out on the farm, and he always said to me, find a job that is your hobby.
You're in Air Cadets,
yeah.
Then going up into a 2-seater plane. What's that feeling like?
Really excited. And then once I was airborne, they actually did hand over the controls, gave me an opportunity to fly around. It was just amazing. You feel you're in control of this machine gliding through the air. It's just an amazing feeling.
How do you actually then become a qualified pilot?
I did a lot of research myself, and obviously now with internet being so readily kind of available with information. But one thing I would say is that there's events called, Pilot Careers Live, and events where you can go and get more information. But yeah, if it's an airline pilot that you want to be, have a look at the airlines. easyJet as an example, we have a course that we run ourselves, and you can find that information on our own website. The information's all there online, so then obviously doing your research into the airline, the course. There are also aptitude tests, and you want to make sure that you've got the teamwork and the communication skills as well to help. So there's an interview involved in the selection process to do that.
What has becoming a pilot taught you about life?
It's taught me to be
che vuoi, gira largo da me, non sai che oramai è finita con te, tu sei quella che mi fa passare soltanto chi sei, chi
There'll be a number of people listening in from all walks of life, backgrounds and interests. But I want to start here. Tell me a little bit about your first job. Your first job that earned you a bit of money. What was it? And what did you kind of learn from that job that you didn't know before going into that job?
So I've been working since I was 14. Working in a restaurant in a kind of a pub. That was my first job. And actually I found my old pay slips recently, and it was about £3.40 an hour or something like that. So, but at the time when I was 14, that all added up, and a couple of shifts a week. It really made a difference to starting to earn your own money, and starting to save for yourself, and saving up towards the things that you want as a young person. I mean, by the time I was sort of 16, 17, I had 2 or 3 jobs. I was really lucky through school I got the opportunity to get a qualification as a fitness instructor. So alongside restaurant work that I was doing, I was also working in a gym. So that was really nice, a nice balance between kind of different work environments. So I think the things that I learned really are the people skills. You're serving customers of all walks of life in the restaurants, and then working with people in the gym who have got their own goals. So you're helping people to achieve their goals in the fitness world. Real kind of mix of people skills there.
What was the ambition behind it? Because a lot of young people will go to uni, they'll do what they want to do, and they'll try and avoid work as long as they can. What was it for you that made you kind of get out there, go into the restaurant, become their fitness instructor and just go for it?
Well, I've come from a family where the work ethic is really strong. So my granddad was a farmer. He worked 7 days a week, long hours, he was up every morning at 6 out on the farm, and he loved his job, so it wasn't work to him, and he always said to me, find a job that is your hobby and you'll never have to work. So of course for him, farming was his hobby. He absolutely loved it. But yeah, that work ethic really landed strongly with all of my cousins, and very supportive family, encouraged me to go out there and work and enjoy what I'm doing. The opportunities again that I was offered at school with the fitness instruction, I was always just taught to say yes as well to opportunities. So I thought, well, that's a great opportunity. I said about the £3.40 an hour. I knew that the fitness instruction paid a little bit better, so I thought, hey, give both a go. And I enjoyed the work that I did in the restaurant because I knew the people I was working with, but also the customers that came in. So I kept both on because I just enjoyed the differences of both worlds, and it was nice to have a bit of variety.
And how do you think work ethic has changed since when you started to now? Do you see any difference, and what does it actually mean, work ethic, in terms of today's world?
Depends on how you've been brought up. I don't think there's been a change in terms of work ethic. It's just if you are driven to work hard and work is your passion, you will work. If your passion is more the social side of things and you've been brought up that you work to live, not live to work, then that's kind of the route you'll probably go down. But I don't think there's been a shift. There's just depends where you've been brought up and the kind of lifestyle that you want, really. I think if you want to work hard and you enjoy what you do, then it doesn't feel like hard work.
I agree. And have you ever been in a job where you've not worked hard because you've not enjoyed it? If there is anyone tuning in that's maybe been in a job where they think they're not working hard, they're not enjoying it, what is your advice to them to add to move forward?
If I'm honest, I haven't found that in the jobs that I've done, but I know that other people do. Like my husband is a great example. He hated his job. Many a job that he's done, he didn't enjoy it at all. But the upbringing that he had, he was told nobody likes what they do, you've just got to get on with it. So he just thought that that was the way it was and nobody enjoyed their job. But yeah, I've always been brought up the other way, that do what you love. So I think if you're not loving what you're doing, maybe go and find something else that you are passionate about. It will make it easier to get up and go to work.
Do you think there is something around the mindset of actually turning up to work then? In terms of in my upbringing, I grew up in a council estate. My mum was an alcoholic. I never had any career guidance and I never see her work. For me, I could have said, right, for me, I don't want to work. But I worked at the age of 13. I got myself a paper round and then I saved that money to pay for my judo lessons because I was bullied in school to become a black belt. And I heard that the first value of money is that actually money can help you do more. Not spend more, but do more. From that day, I wanted to go out and get a job and work and take anything. My first job was an apprenticeship. Do you think that's a mindset? And do you think those who have been told in their families, because there's a lot of families that say, oh, you go and do a job and that's how it is. And then you're in families like you and your granddad on the farm saying, no, you get out there, you do your job, it becomes an hobby, you love it, you're not working a day in your life. Do you think those who are from the latter, where work is boring and this is work, and can they change their mindset if they find something they like?
They can. Again, my husband is an absolute testament to this. So he is a real creative person and he's now setting up his own business, designing and, you know, creating products based on his experience. So the experience that he had, even though he didn't enjoy what he was doing, it's helped him build those foundations to kind of progress in the career that he wants to. So the shift for him was surrounding himself with positive people. So, you know, stepping away from the negativity and finding the role models that could really help him progress his career. So, you know, getting a business mentor who really gave him some guidance, and he could obviously look up to that person and see if they've done it, I can do it too. And it's been a long journey, but, you know, he's done so well, and it is all based on the positive mindset that he's been able to kind of create for himself.
So two things there, Kate, because I think I just want to tap into. One, it's surrounding yourself with positive mindsets and positive people, right? Where do you find those positive people from?
Great question. There will be somebody, you know, in school, maybe a teacher that just sees something in you. You know, obviously all teachers are different. You may just have that one teacher that, you know, you align with in terms of your values, and you know, they might just see that spark in you. Whether it be, you know, if you're really good at design technology, that teacher might just help you to find the right kind of path. Getting out there to clubs, you know, you mentioned judo, I was in the Air Cadets, so, you know, whatever it is, again, that you're passionate about, that you enjoy, and whatever your kind of reason. I went to Air Cadets because I got bullied too, that was the reason that I went there. Out of a negative can come a positive if you use that energy to drive towards finding a way out. And if it is, you know, going to a youth club or Air Cadets judo, a sports activity, there will be somebody there that, you know, you have that connection with, and they can just help you on that path. And I think on the flip side of that, the coaches at those sessions and, you know, the teachers in the schools, if you see something in somebody, you know, encourage it and help develop it, because, you know, you can change somebody's life.
I agree. And anyone who's listening on LinkedIn, they could be someone's mentor, right? Yeah. They could just give someone the advice they need to change the course. And then the second thing you said around your husband was it took a long time. And I smiled inside, because sometimes when we're young, we think that everything happens in minutes.
Yeah.
Instantly. And if it doesn't work for 2 minutes, oh, it's not working. What is your advice to people? Staying resilient, but also being patient. To be patient, do you need to be resilient? And to be resilient, do you need patience? What would you say?
It's not always going to go right, but you can find so much learning from sort of setbacks and mistakes. So even if it isn't going right, self-reflection, I think, is the biggest thing, of how could I have done that better? How could I have changed the trajectory? And, you know, just reflecting on that and thinking, okay, I'm going to give it another go. We can get a lot of knockbacks and a lot of setbacks and think, oh, it's just not worth it. But, you know, if you're passionate enough to kind of keep driving forward, and if you really want it, then whatever that is, you know, you'll find a way. And obviously with that support is key. You know, I remember some phone calls to my mum during my flying training going, can't do this, it's too hard. When you haven't got that resilience yourself, having somebody else to kind of just push you back on the right track is really, really important.
That just one call just to ring up and vent to, right?
Yeah, I still remember it, you know, and yeah, that kind of kept me on track. And I mean, I probably wouldn't have given up, but I felt in that moment like giving up. So yeah, we've all been there where we just feel like we haven't got any more to give. But yeah, having a bit of support around you can just help you kind of get something back in the tank.
Talking about your pilot career, I would like you to kind of walk us through the process.
Yeah.
How do you become a pilot?
There are so many misconceptions about becoming a pilot. I think the first thing is knowing the entry requirements. So people think, oh, I need to have 20/20 vision, I need to have a degree. You don't. You can wear glasses. You only need 5 GCSEs.
So you don't need a degree and you only need 5 GCSEs to start your pilot journey?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. But people think, oh, I must have to go to university first. So I think even not knowing the entry points can be a barrier. So people maybe don't think it's an opportunity that's available for them. Yeah, knowing the entry requirements is the first thing. And something that we're trying to do a lot more of now is, you know, going into schools and explaining that to young people so that they know that it is an option for them. You know, I think the first thing about making choices about your career is knowing what your options are. So gathering those options, as I mentioned earlier, I was in the Air Cadets. Through the Air Cadets, I got to go flying in a small sort of 2-seater plane. And I think for anybody who's had that opportunity, they'll say they caught the bug. So yeah, I really did catch the flying bug. Absolutely loved it.
Tell me a little bit that first time you got in the plane. So I've got loads of curious questions. So you're in Air Cadets.
Yeah.
You're then going up into a 2-seater plane. What's that feeling like for you? Like, was you anxious? Was you excited? Was it a mix of both?
Really excited. Obviously, I knew I had an instructor with me, so I knew that I wasn't kind of being given the controls. It was okay, you know, they were going to do the takeoff and everything. So yeah, just beaming from ear to ear, just, you know, really excited. And that feeling, you know, when you lift off the ground, it's just incredible. And then once I was airborne, they actually did hand over the controls, gave me an opportunity to fly around. It was just amazing. You know, you feel you're in control of this, you know, machine gliding through the air. It's just a real amazing feeling.
And what's it called? Airborne?
Get airborne when you get into the air.
So that's what it's called. So when you get into the air, it's called airborne.
Yeah.
Then you got the controls. That was just it for you, wasn't it? That's your career that you wanted to kind of take forward. So then what happens then from the Air Cadets to having being airborne with the controls and flying this machine? What goes on next? Like, how do you actually then become a qualified pilot?
So, I mean, that step isn't necessary, but for me it was the turning point. So you don't have to be in the Air Cadets, but so say, you know, going through school, getting those GCSEs, you need maths, science and English. At that point for me, I started voicing the desire to become a pilot. There wasn't a lot of information available through school. They didn't really know that route. Certainly at my school it was very much, you know, university was the route that most people took and that they encouraged. So I did a lot of research myself, and obviously now with you know, internet being so readily kind of available with information, just Google, you know, and then having a look on websites, finding out information about the different courses, different flying schools. But one thing I would say is that there's events called, you know, Pilot Careers Live, and events where you can go and get more information about the flying schools, because there's so many different options, so many different routes. It's really kind of can be quite daunting. And then looking for an airline, opportunities to go direct. If your desire is to be an airline pilot, obviously there's other types of pilots, there's military, rotary, things like that. But yeah, if it's an airline pilot that you want to be, have a look at the airlines. easyJet as an example, we have a course that we run ourselves, and you can find that information on our own website. The information's all there online. So then obviously doing your research into the airline, the course, so that you're ready for the interview. There are also aptitude tests, because, you know, whilst you need 5 GCSEs, some of the skills that you really need are sort of reaction times, hand-eye coordination, that kind of thing. So yeah, as part of the selection process, there are aptitude tests, a little bit of maths, a little bit of science involved in the aptitude tests, and then an interview to kind of see if you've got the kind of interpersonal skills required. Because if you think about it, as a pilot, you're going to be sat in a very small room for a few hours with somebody, and you want to make sure that you've got the teamwork and the communication skills as well to help. So there's an interview involved in the selection process to do that.
And what was it about being an airline pilot for you?
I did consider the military. Obviously, being in the Air Cadets, which is part of the RAF, I considered the military route. But I finished school in about 2008 when the military was downsizing, you know, recession, etc. It was actually a military pilot that I knew through the Air Cadets that's told me about the flying school that I went to. And obviously, as a young person, I was very lucky. I went on holiday a few times. I was lucky to actually go into the flight deck, you know, pre 9/11 to see what went on. And, you know, again, one of those key childhood memories, I remember seeing the 2 pilots in the flight deck and thinking, oh, this is amazing, I'd like to do this.
And that was just it for you?
Yeah.
Did you ever get put off when you typed in pilot into Google and see loads of males. Did that ever pause you back? And what is your advice to anyone else? You hear it time and time again, you think of a pilot, you think of a male, and we're trying to bust that myth, and this is why you're here today. How can we get more young women into being a pilot? Tell me that journey and tell me a little bit about that, and what's your advice to young women who may be considering, and then they do some research and they go, actually, you talked about role models, I don't see many other role models around me.
Those two pilots that I went into the flight deck and saw, they were both men. Maybe there was a point where I thought, oh, okay, these pilots are male, but it didn't hold me back. So again, supportive family. My dad said to me, you can do anything you want to do. So I always believed that. And, I was the only woman in my squadron at the Air Cadets for a time. I've always maybe just been one of the few women just because the hobbies that I had were kind of more stereotypically male. But if you go online, certainly now that airlines and flying schools are making a real effort to bust those myths, and the advertising that you will see is very balanced. So there will be equal numbers, hopefully, of men and women, because there are now more women coming through the flying schools and airlines as well. As an airline, we are trying to go out to schools and, showcase our female pilots to make sure that people do have those role models. Obviously, now that the flight deck tour is shut during flight, you don't have kind of a visible role model of a pilot. So yeah, we're doing everything we can show in the media and online that.
Well, you're here today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't it? Absolutely.
So hopefully they won't be put off. But certainly at the events that I've mentioned that I go to, there's a lot of female presence.
How many pilots are currently at easyJet?
About 4,000 pilots in total. Across, we have about 8 countries where we have pilots based, so all over Europe and the UK, of course. And of those 4,000, only about 300 are female. 7.5%, which is higher than the industry average and is increasing.
That's good news, isn't it? That we're seeing more female pilots get into the industry. I want to talk a little bit about the day, like when you're going to go and fly.
Yeah.
Like, tell me a little bit about that routine. How does the day-to-day work in terms of when you're going to go and fly somewhere? Where do you check in? What do you do? Like, just run me through the story on that kind of thing.
Every day is different, of course, because it depends where you're flying. But I'll run you through my day tomorrow. So I'm flying to Munich tomorrow. My alarm will be set for about 3:30. So the night before, I'll get ready all of the documents that I need, because we have basically an iPad with loads of apps on there with all of the performance calculations, the documents for the flight plan, things like that, where we can check the weather and check the route that we're going to fly. So I'll get all that ready the night before I go to bed, get up at 3:30, head off to work. I'll report for duty about an hour before the flight is due to depart. So,
what does report for duty mean?
So, well, you know how passengers check in?
Oh, yep.
We effectively have to check in and go through security as well. Just check in on our phones, except we don't have to print a boarding pass. We just go through security, meet our crew, and obviously we've got pre-flight checks to do before we start welcoming the passengers on board. So we arrive about an hour before, do all of the security, same as the passengers, except it's in a different section of the airport. And then we'll meet the crew, go to the aircraft, we'll brief together as a team all of the things that are going to happen that day. So again, we'll talk together about the weather's going to be like, any special considerations for the flight. We'll decide together how much fuel we need to take, and then we'll talk to the cabin crew about any special things for the flight in the cabin, anything that they need to know about. We'll tell them if there's going to be any turbulence and things like that so that they're prepared. So it's a real kind of team effort, make sure that everybody's on board and aligned with the plan. And then we've got security checks to do to make sure that everything's safe, and then we'll start inviting the passengers to board the aircraft, say 25 minutes, half an hour before departure.
And is that team different every time?
Every day. So of those 4,000 pilots, you could be flying with any of them. You have obviously first officers and captains.
And what's the difference between the two?
When you join the airline, you generally join as a first officer, so sitting in the right-hand seat of the aircraft, sort of second in command, if you like. Generally less experienced, and you're building up that experience alongside a captain. And then to become a captain, quite a rigorous process. There's selection, assessments, a course you have to go through to prepare yourself to become a captain. Obviously, once you're a captain, you're in charge and in control of the whole operation, if you like.
And how are the 4,000? Is it like half and half? 2,000 captains to 2,000 first officer?
Yeah, there or thereabouts.
What is the time length? I know in life things doesn't always work in time, but when can someone expect from becoming a first officer to, in terms of the intricacy, to become a captain? Is it years? Is it months?
We have limitations on how many hours we can fly each year. It can be quite a tiring job, so certain limits on how many hours you can fly at once, and then how many hours you can fly in a month.
And what are they? Do you know what they are?
Around about 900 hours a year. Say you couldn't fly all of those within a 3-month period. It's spread out throughout the year. I'd say generally, across my career, probably about 700 hours a year I've flown. So you need a good couple of thousand hours to even start the command process. So you're talking a minimum of 5 years to even become a captain. But obviously during COVID times, when there was less flying happening, the time to command was slightly longer for anybody who who was kind of held up during the COVID times. So yeah, minimum of 5 years, but for some people they may not feel that they want to progress as quickly. Happy to kind of stay learning in the right hand seat for a bit longer. They may, say 8, 9, 10 years down the line decide it's time for them to become a captain. So every journey is different.
And what about your journey? How long did you do?
Around 5 years.
About 5 years. And how many flights do you kind of do a day when you are flying? 1, is it 3? How does that kind of work?
So tomorrow, for example, I'm flying to Munich and then I'll fly back to Gatwick where I'm based. If you're flying a longer flight, for example, you might just do one flight. So say you're going from Gatwick down to Egypt, you might just fly there, stay there for the night and then come back the next day. We have some where you fly 3 and then maybe stay over in Jersey. So you might go Paris, back to base and then out to Jersey for the evening. Or you may do four flights and do 2 different destinations back to base in between.
Is that also different planes? Or are you bringing the same plane back?
Generally stay on the same aircraft. It would be very rare that you would swap halfway through the day, but it can happen.
What makes a good pilot and what makes a pilot that may not get through the course or get through to become a pilot? What are the traits that you see? What makes a good pilot and what makes a pilot that just doesn't kind of tip the edge to become one?
So we're really confident in our selection process that if you pass selection, you are almost guaranteed to pass the course. So much so to the point the flying school that we're affiliated with have sort of a standard assurance that if you don't pass the course due to aptitude, you sort of effectively get your money back because they haven't selected you correctly. The selection should kind of rigorous enough to make sure that you've got those skills. And the skills we're looking for, we actually look at competencies. So we're looking for things like leadership, teamwork, communication, good problem solving skills. Obviously there has to be an element of the ability to manually fly the aeroplane, which is why we look at the aptitude tests of kind of the reaction times, the hand-eye coordination, that kind of thing, the multitasking. Good situation awareness, good management of workload. So yeah, I think they're all things that you can practice. Things like air cadets, things like managing your GCSE revision timetable, that kind of thing. Managing your workload, learning how to do that in effective ways are skills that you can pick up and prepare yourself for.
And what do you see as who wants to be pilots that might not cut it? For those who want to get into it, just don't do these things and you'll be fine.
Well, I'd say just focusing on those areas. So, if you're maybe shy and you struggle to sort of hold a conversation, then work on that area. That would be one of my weaknesses when I was growing up. I was really, really shy as a young person. Maybe you struggle with kind of managing your time. Again, practice that and have a look at ways that are going to work for you to get better at time management. Situation awareness, I think even just walking down the street, we're so head in phones these days. Are we actually aware of what's going on around us? So, just building up that awareness of what's going on around you is really going to help. So yeah, those skills that I mentioned, really, whatever you see your weakness as, you can work on it and improve it.
And you talked about get your money back if you don't become a pilot. Is it expensive to become a pilot and do the training? How does that break down for those who are from backgrounds who may not be able to afford the training? How does that system work?
It is an expensive industry to get into. It's something that is probably the biggest barrier. At the moment there's no kind of way around that. It does cost a lot of money. But what I would say is where there's a will, there's a way. If you don't have that money now, work to save it, to kind of better yourself. And, it's an investment, isn't it? So I think the best thing we can invest in is ourselves. Putting kind of the money towards improving your career is going to help in the long run.
So there's no kind of grants or student loan you can take to pay for it at the moment?
What I'd say do the research, have a look out there and see what's available at the time, because it's an ever-changing thing and there may be things available at the time that you're looking to do so.
And in terms of cost, what does it cost currently to become a pilot and do the training?
easyJet offers a multi-pilot licence course. It costs around €100,000, so it's priced in euros, about that. And that is everything from no hours whatsoever all the way through to flying one of our jets.
Is that what's that called? A
multi-pilot's licence.
What is that meaning? Why is it multi? Does that mean you can drive all types of planes?
In the airline environment, obviously you're flying with another pilot, so you're multi-crew. What it would mean with a multi-pilot's licence is you wouldn't be able to go down to your local aero club and hire a small aircraft and take it up on your own. You couldn't fly on your own, but you need to fly multi-crew. But every type of aeroplane, you need a specific type rating to fly. So it would be like driving Ford Focus versus driving a Nissan Qashqai. You would need a different type rating to drive each different one. easyJet, we have the Airbus A320 family. All the easyJet pilots have a specific type rating on that type of aeroplane, so where we learn the intricacies of that specific type. So what that means is I couldn't tomorrow go and fly a Boeing 737. I'd have to do another type rating to learn learn how to fly that, because there's slight differences. General aerodynamics is the same, but there's differences in terms of the systems that are on board that aeroplane.
And how do you choose which one's the most kind of common? Sure, if you know how to drive one plane, there's very similarities just in another plane. But how do you know which license to get? Is that based where you're based? Is that based on your ambition, who you're kind of doing it with? What is that based on?
Doing the research is really important to find out the way you want to go. And I mentioned finding the airline that suits you. So if you decided that easyJet was the airline for you based on their values and they aligned with yours, easyJet fly the A320, and the license and the course that we provide gives you that type rating. If you wanted to do a generic license, you wouldn't do the type rating section. So you do everything up to the type rating until you got that first job. And then when you get that first job, that's when you would know the type of aircraft that you're going to fly, and that's when you would do the specific type rating for it. So you can do a generic course and then type specific at the end, or if you apply directly to an airline program, then they will put you on the type rating course that's specific to their business.
Cool, so really important to do your research,
Yeah.
find out what airline you kind of want to focus on. Yeah. easyJet, direct, that's what I want, kind of thing. How long does it take you to pass and get the license in total?
So approximately 2 years. So I started training when I was 19, joined easyJet when I was 21.
So you became a pilot at 21?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's good, but we see a lot of people joining straight from school at 18. We see some people that come in a second career, even in their early 50s. So, it's a real variety of people that are coming through to join the business. It's great.
And what has becoming a pilot taught you about life? Someone who is not driving a plane won't see because you're up in the cabin.
It's taught me to be patient. So I think sometimes you can't change what's happening. If we get a slot from air traffic control, it means we have to wait. The bags are lost and we have to wait for them to arrive at the aeroplane. We have to wait. There's sometimes, as much as you try, there's nothing you can do. So yeah, learning to be patient and just wait for things to happen. When you've tried all the options and there's no options left, you just have to wait. I've definitely learned patience.
So patience has been your major thing. And do you think that's made you a great captain and a pilot?
I think it's helped me to help others more, because when we're teaching other people on the journey of learning, sometimes you really want to give them the answer, but actually for them to do that journey of self-discovery themselves and find the answer, if I just sit back, be patient, they'll get there. It's going to help them to learn better. So yeah, I think it's made me a better instructor.
Now you're also training manager. So what does that involve? And how is that different from flying a plane to actually training people to help them fly the plane? Was that what the role is?
Very different job.
Yeah.
So I do still fly occasionally, because I think I need to keep my hours up and to keep my licence current. I also train occasionally as well. I'll fly tomorrow, train the next day. But the main part of my job now is looking after the training programme for the new entrants. So the multi-pilot's licence course that I was talking about, I sort of manage the process of that. So we currently have over 400 pilots in that programme. So I'm sort of managing and looking after their progress.
Helping them and nurturing them to get over the line and become pilots.
Yeah.
Is that what that does?
Absolutely.
And what do you like about that role in terms of the day-to-day? Or is it you just love being up in the sky?
I do love flying. I absolutely love it. But I also like helping people. The ability to sort of help people when they're quite early on in their career, keep them on the right trajectory towards career success. If I can just have a little bit of an impact on a few people, then I'm happy.
Your message to anyone that's listening in, what is your key message to them around getting into becoming a pilot? What is your one message to the world?
It's not even just being a pilot. It's the industry itself is such an exciting industry. We need air traffic controllers, engineers, cabin crew, ground handlers, as well as pilots. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, you will find it within the aviation industry. There will be barriers in the way. There's always a way over them. If you want something enough, that you'll find a way.
And my final question, are you ready for it? What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
My dog gets me up in the morning. Yeah, just knowing that I'm going to get up and help someone, that's what gets me out of bed.
And the dog. I'm not really a dog fan, as you can see. I don't really like dogs. No, I love them, as you can see everywhere. I'm a big dog fan. Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing your wisdom, breaking down what it means to become a pilot, how it works, how it operates, giving us some insight to what actually happens on the day, and for just being so lovely in yourself. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Che vuoi gira largo da me, non sai che oramai è finita con te. Tu sei quella che mi fa passare soltanto guai. Chi sei?
Next time on My Duvet.
I loved my time at O2, I think we had a number of years where we were probably the most authentic business in the whole of the United Kingdom. We were naive enough to think that we could change the world. And we did do amazing things like the O2, and we sponsored Beyonce when she came to the UK. We bought out all the concerts in the UK. We made an amazing ad with her.
Are you dancing with Beyonce?
No.
How does one unlock the gateway?
I think everybody has a gateway of that's how they can be their best self.
And for you to see your gateway, was it a moment or was it a person?
Well, I think there was a couple of things.
And have you ever been boxed in your career?
I was on the sports and social committee of every single company I ever worked for until HR quietly whispered in my ear one time and said, the CEO can't be on the sports and social committee because it scares other people from joining.
So is it about having your invisible network internally, but also your external visible network?
A parent, a friend, a sports nut, as well as the guy who's had the privilege of running telecommunications companies in the UK and the US. I had a catastrophic failure. I came as close to losing my job as makes no difference.
How do you deal with a situation like that? You start seeing people's true colours, don't you, in a crisis?
That's a moment of opportunity just as much as it is a moment of crisis. Take yourself out of the shoes of the guy who's just about to be fired. In that calm, our biggest corporate customer at the time was Sky. And I said, you know what? This is not a moment to be corporate. First thing I want to do is I want to say sorry, because everyone says, don't apologize, don't apologize. And probably that soundbite saved my job. But even if I had lost my job 10 minutes later, I wouldn't have changed for a minute being authentic, because I was going to go down being me rather than going down pretending to be somebody else. We have the exclusive on the iPhone, and not to make this about telecoms, but one of our competitors had negotiated for 9 months, and what they were doing is they were focused on the commercials. We did 4 days with Tim Cook and his team, and Steve Jobs was still in the business at the time. And in 4 days, we persuaded them that we will make this an epic experience for our customers. Some people have a procurement team and they believe that their job is to squeeze the juice out of the last pip on behalf of their employer. And getting good value is of course important, but we wanted to build partnerships.
What does leadership actually mean? Is it in you? Do you learn it?
I do think that great leaders are team players. But I also, if I can stretch the sports analogy, as the guy who's the chairman of Six Nations Rugby, the truth is